All right, let's get right into it. We're about to tackle something that's, well, at the very core of how we think. I'm talking about categories. We usually picture them as these neat little drawers in our minds, right? We just open one up, put something inside, and close it. Simple. But what if that entire picture is just wrong?
What if the building blocks of our thoughts aren't just labels we stick on things? What if they're more like tools? Active, powerful tools that we use to build meaning from the ground up. I mean, think about it. That one little shift, it changes absolutely everything.
So here's the big difference, right? On one hand, you've got the old way. Categories as drawers. That's a really passive way of thinking. It's just sorting stuff that's already there. This goes here, that goes there. But the new way, thinking of them as operators, now that's active. An operator doesn't just label something, it actually does something. It's not asking, where does this fit? It's asking, how is this being shaped into something right now? We're moving from just sorting things to actually creating meaning. Okay, so if categories are these active tools, these operators, how do they even work? Well, to get that, we need to look at a different kind of logic. A logic that shows us this hidden, repeating pattern that's kind of like the engine behind all our thoughts. It all comes down to three foundational lenses. And here they are. It pretty much boils down to this. Anytime you or I try to understand anything, we're really just asking one of three basic questions. First, there's the self lens. That's the internal view, the how does this feel or look from the inside. Then you've got the act lens. This is all about the process, the action. What's actually happening here? And finally, the being lens. That's the big picture, the objective structure. What is the container this whole thing is sitting in? So you've got self, act, and being, or you could think of it as perspective, process, and structure. Now, this is where it gets really, really cool. I mean, this is the magic of it. This simple three-part pattern, it's not just something you use once. It repeats, and it repeats over and over again at every level you look. It's fractal. So what does fractal actually mean here? It means you can take any concept, literally any concept, and apply these three lenses. And when you do, it splits into three new, more detailed concepts. But then, and this is the amazing part, you can grab any one of those new concepts and do the exact same thing again and again, infinitely. It's like a machine for generating endless layers of meaning. Okay, let's make this real with an example. Take a simple word like possibility. If we look at it through that self lens, our inner personal perspective, we get logical possibility. The question is, can I even think this without it being a contradiction? Then we apply the act lens, which is about process and knowledge. That gives us epistemological possibility. Now the question is, can we know if this is true? And finally, the being lens, the objective structure. That gives us ontological possibility, which asks, can this thing actually exist in the real world? You see that? One word, but applying our three lenses gives us three totally distinct kinds of possibility, all from one simple pattern. And this isn't just some abstract philosophical game, This fractal pattern, it's literally the engine that builds the tools we all use to make sense of our world, every single day. Just look at how this builds the absolute basics of meaning. To understand anything, say a chair, you need three operations. You need negation, knowing what it's not. It's not a table, it's not a bed. You need relation, knowing what it's connected to. It's linked to sitting, to furniture. And you need limitation, defining its edges. It's this much chair right here. Without all three of those, you can't even form a clear thought. You have to be able to separate, connect, and define. The trouble starts when we forget these are just tools. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. So many of our arguments, our big debates, they're not really about facts. They're category errors. We think we're fighting about numbers or reality, but what's actually happening is we're stuck in a clash of meaning because we're using completely different invisible tools to build our arguments. We're just talking right past each other. Okay, let's zoom out and apply this to something much bigger, like systems. Think about the concept of quantity. If you use the self lens, you're focused on unity, the one, the individual. Use the act lens, and your focus shifts to plurality, the many, all the different interacting parts. And with the being lens, you see the totality, the whole system that holds it all together. So you've got the one, the many, and the whole. Three simple ways of looking, but wow, do they have some massive implications. And this is where it gets really serious. Because when a person or a whole group gets attached to just one of these lenses, it can harden into an ideology.
If you become obsessed with unity, that can lead to monism, this idea that everything is one. If you fixate on plurality, that can lead to pluralism. And if you make totality the absolute ultimate goal, well, that can be used to justify totalitarianism. See how these mental tools can shape entire worldviews? So the big question is, how does a simple way of thinking, a mental tool, turn into something people are willing to fight and die for? Well, it turns out there's a pretty predictable psychological path that this follows. It really happens in 3 stages. First, someone identifies with a category. They pick something like freedom or order and make it their core value. Then, they internalize it. It stops being just an idea they like and becomes a fundamental part of their identity, of who they are. And finally, what do you do when your identity is threatened? You defend it. The category isn't a tool anymore. It's a flag. And every other category becomes the enemy. And the real heart of the problem? It's the number one. People grab onto one piece of the puzzle and treat it like it's the whole picture. Someone might say, order is everything, and completely dismiss the need for freedom. Or someone else does the exact opposite. They're taking one part of a balanced, necessary whole and trying to make it the only thing that matters. And that, well, that's a recipe for instant conflict. So if we can see how this conflict machine works, is there a way to diffuse it? Absolutely. The trick is to move up a level. We need to start using what you could call meta-logics, basically logics about how we use our other logics. They're tools for managing our tools. And we have 3 main ones in our toolkit. First, you've got either-or logic. This is for when you need to be decisive. A surgeon in an ER can't debate forever. They have to choose this or that, right now. It's super clear, but the downside is it can make you dogmatic. Then there's both-and logic. This is for complexity, for integration. Think about trying to find a solution that makes 2 opposing sides happy. You need a both-and mindset. The risk? You can get stuck in indecision. And finally, there's neither nor. This one is amazing for breaking out of false choices. Someone says, so are you for chaos or tyranny? Neither nor lets you step back and say, that's a false choice. I'm for something else entirely. Overdo it, though, and you can end up cynical, rejecting everything. The real skill is knowing which logic to pick up for the job at hand.
So I want to leave you with a question, a kind of tool you can take with you. The next time you're in one of those arguments that's just going in circles, just stop for a second and ask yourself, are we actually arguing about reality, about the facts, or are we just trapped in a clash of invisible categories? Are we using 2 different tools to build 2 different worlds and then getting angry that they don't match? Because seeing that difference, well, that might be the only key you need to actually find a way forward.